Is the vintage Associated RC10. As you can see in front of you, there are three different versions of the RC10. Now, I just happen to have the Associated Team Losi JRX2. So this buggy would have been roughly around 1986 or 87. And this buggy here from Team Losi, I believe it's the first competition or first issue of the two-wheel drive buggy that was released by Team Losi. This is actually pretty neat buggy here, which I will probably do a separate video on it, but just to show you that it has a graphite chassis, and I believe because of the Team Losi and possibly another buggy I can't think of, that Team Associated releases the graphite version. So more about this Team Losi at another time. Alright, so I want to present this here, Stamp A. Now, there would have been another or a couple of versions before the Stamp A, but Stamp A was when they, I would say the earlier version of the tub, that when they actually started to keep track of the version. It's hard to see here. I'm not sure you can see on the video. I want to point out that these original arms are fairly short, but they still have fairly good travel. It also comes with a sway bar, pretty much advanced for its time, because like I said, this is about 1986, so you could adjust your toe in and your camber, and adjust, of course, your shocks by this sleeve here, and not too many positions, or just two positions, a lower or higher position for your shock itself. And the rear, you could adjust the camber itself as well. This has the dog bone drive axle, 32 pitch gears, and this spur gear has kind of ball kind of a configuration. And it has, I believe, 5 gears in the gearbox here, so it was pretty complex. I heard it was pretty a pain for the early edition to put the gearbox together. I never had to build a new one, so I don't know what it's like, but I've been told that it's pretty difficult to put the gearbox together. But once it's put together, it runs fairly smooth, and you have a fairly competitive buggy itself. This is the older style body that had been in about 3 or 4 different versions of the RC10, and this happened to be my favorite style of body. And it also comes with an interior driver, which I'll show you in this one here. So this is the closest to the early edition of RC10 that I have. And just a few days ago, I picked this up from a friend of mine, a pretty rare find, because of the mentioned earlier, the graphite chassis. They only released this not one time, but there's not, as far as I know, there's no other versions of the graphite chassis like the aluminum tub chassis. This is the original body. As you can see, the style is different in those two. It has the rear player, more of a sleek aerodynamic design, which is pretty neat, but I still prefer the old one. So as you can see, it's fairly similar to the gold type chassis, meaning the steering components looks pretty much the same. The battery configuration, servo mount, the shock tower, very similar. Of course, this has multiple positions for mounting the shock. Again, this would have been issued, actually the manual says 1989, so this came out 1989. It has updated universal dry shaft. I'm sure you can see there, instead of the dog bone, so that's an updated feature. And it has an updated gearbox. So overall, very similar to the gold type. So Team Associated, I believe, just mainly base it on the gold type chassis and update it with the graphite chassis with some minor updates. So I want to show you the manual. So this is the box art. As you can see, what I have here is not quite box art, but still looks pretty neat. Here's a picture of the assembled buggy, the graphite chassis. Very nice looking buggy, I must say. And this would have been, in my opinion, ahead of its time when this thing came out. It was very competitive and it won many championship races. Where does it say? Oh yeah, you could see here it says 1989 is when it was printed. So it's a fairly early edition. And it's just the assembly manual. I am planning to take this apart to rebuild it, relube everything, make sure everything's built accordingly. So yeah, so here is the gearbox assembly for the gears. Right there, pretty interesting gearing configuration. It looks fairly durable for comparing to a lot of other buggies at the time of mostly plastic gears, and there are some metal components in here, so it's a pretty durable. It may be able to handle some of the later or updated modern gears. 32 pitch, so it's if it's a little bit stronger, could handle a little more power. And this shows you how to build the gears in the gearbox. Here you can see some more here. Here's a spur gear, pretty interesting. And the finished gearbox, and there's the body. So I will put the body back on here, close it in, and there you have it, the finished body. Alright, graphite, very nice. The cost would have been $250, and some more image here. I find Team Associated did a very good box here. Very durable considering it's fairly old. Still held up very well. Some discoloration here, which is as expected. This is actually the RC10 Championship Edition. This body here is not the correct body. It would have looked like this body here. But I am going to plan to restore it, and I did bought the right body for it, so I will restore it to the best I could do, close to box art itself. And this body, it's called the they call it the Turbo Mirage body. Okay, this one here came out in 1992. Yeah, right here. You can see right here. I'm sure you can see 1992. And some reason, which I find interesting, Team Associated decided to go back with the aluminum gold pan chassis. Not sure the reason why, but if any of you know, please put in the comments below and be very interested. But again, not a lot has been changed in the overall design. But it does say that, well, they updated the wheels and tires, more low profile front wheels and rear wheels. Oh, the main thing is they updated the new longer front A-arms. I can see why. It makes it handles a little better compared to the original one, which is much shorter. So new shock mounting position, multiple shock mounting for so especially useful racing on how you want to set up your car. New longer front shocks, so these shocks are a little bit longer than the A-stamp right here. Yep, I can see that it is. Now I notice it's significantly longer than the A-stamp right here. Another major update here is the Stealth transmission. So they updated the gearbox to the Stealth, which is an improvement to the older 5-gear gearbox. Try to find an image of the Stealth transmission here. It actually looks pretty neat. It mounts in the same position as the old gearbox. Here is a drawing of the Stealth gearbox. So it says the featuring quick change spur gear, case to motor plate, dirt proof sealed, lightweight design, long life clutch friction plate, large area high torque clutch plates, low inertia drivetrain. And there's a few more things here: reversal motor mount, gold anodized mounting plate, and a few other things. And this is the came in 1992. You probably can tell these are not the original wheels and tires. I don't know if I have them, but they would have looked like on that picture right there. And the updated, now these arms been dyed black, they would have been white. So looks on here as the updated ball bearing steering, which is an improvement to the original steering. And I've also updated, I just happened to work a more modern CVD or universal dry shaft. It actually fits in here quite nicely as opposed to the dog bone. So again, and last but not least, I'll show you while I have it here, the box itself. Again, very beautiful box artwork. Cost went up a little bit from $250 to $260 about 3 years later, which is a lot of money for back in the days. Yeah, that's about it.